So Gospel Flat Farm has been in our family for 32 years, as old as our oldest son Cater is. And it's named Gospel Flat because once upon a time there were 5 churches here. And now I don't think there's a single church, except for the Catholic church over there. But really we don't have anything to do with the gospel, except for the abundance of vegetables. I had a postdoc lined up to come to Berkeley, and my parents at that time had a house on Brighton Beach. This came up for sale, and we were moving to Berkeley, and they decided that this would be a great place to all get together. It was just completely open. You could see from here all the way to the water because none of those trees grew up. At that time, the Techeras had cows out there, and so the cows grazed everything to stubble. So we bought it, they bought it, and we moved here, and rather than living in Berkeley, we decided we'd live here. I don't know, I think probably that first summer, Don did a lot of fixing up, and then he decided to grow wild rice. And it was a friend of ours, Kevin Kelly, who talked us into doing that. And it was kind of a good idea in that it really killed gophers, so the whole field was like a series of ponds with dikes, and you would walk around the ponds, and we planted wild rice by just throwing the seeds out. It was great. And then we harvested it, and we had a harvester. It was a giant machine, and the only people who would buy the wild rice, because it comes with a very thick coat on it, was a wild rice company, and they gave you back some wild rice in exchange for the wild rice you gave them. So it wasn't very profitable. So I think we did that 2 years, and then began to switch to growing vegetables. And all that time, the kids, Cater was growing up, Mickey was born, and the yard was getting fixed up a little bit, but then we started really growing vegetables.
Every winter they plant the fava beans, and that's the cover crop. And fava beans are legumes. They're good at fixing nitrogen in the soil, and so that's something that not all plants can do. But that fixed variety of nitrogen is very important for plants, for all plants to grow. So by planting this cover crop and then tilling it into the soil, you not only return all of these nutrients from the plant to the soil, but you have this fixation of nitrogen. He has this mobile situation where he can move the chickens around, so he will plant a bunch of stuff and grow and harvest, and then whatever is left, like if it's Brussels sprouts, then you cut off all the Brussels sprouts from the stalks, and you have all of this plant material left, and the chickens would love to eat that. So he has this way of moving his chicken pen around to the places where he's done farming, and he's harvested the food that he wants, and then the chickens can go in and eat everything else and turn that into eggs.
Excellent. Well, chicken poop. Yeah. And then egg collecting. At this point, they're just starting to lay, so there's just a few. But the chickens are right in there. Right now they're mostly out, but you can see there's a bird. The egg just sort of rolls out. So by the end of the day, there's, many dozen eggs all sitting there, easy for you to just collect. And the cool thing about an egg that is just an egg that is laid and doesn't need any washing is this perfect organism where it's breathing and it has, it's just alive. So pretty soon I'm going to take this whole chicken fence and enclose this patch of artichokes, which is sort of going into a winter dormant mode. And the chickens are going to scratch underneath all of these artichokes. They're going to basically do all of the weeding that I would otherwise need to do, and they're going to fertilize the planting. And then in the spring, we'll take the chickens away and the artichokes will grow up like gangbusters. And that'll be a new strategy for farming artichokes, combining the chicken fertilizing and cleaning the artichoke patch. So it's sort of a new wave of farming where the chickens do the work and you're harvesting eggs constantly off the chickens and feeding the soil, and what you end up with is a really rich soil and a lot of vegetables and a lot of eggs. And of course, having chickens on the farm really adds a lot of character. As you can see, they have quite a good amount of character to share, the birds.
What's still producing?
This one here?
Yes, yes, yes. A lot of it. I just love that pale, the pale yellow. I really like that in the orange. These are producing, I mean that end, no, but just all kind of, the petals are really, doesn't that look like Dr. Seuss?
Yeah.
And sometimes they'll be like, there's yellows and oranges and there. By themselves you kind of go, is there something wrong with that flower? But when you have a lot of them, then you realize that's how it's supposed to be.
I'm gonna go stock the farm stand.
Okay.
Five big sticks of flowers for $5. Very about white ones. So $5.50. I like to come to the farm stand because we buy local products that are very delicious and grown with great love by the owners here. I haven't met them, but I heard about them, and I shopped here with my friend and she showed it to me, so now I'm going to come here and shop by myself without her and weigh things that I like and put the money in the container there and then go home and cook the delicious food. So what's better than that?
We spilled a few of them. So I studied art and sculpture and came back to the farm and realized there was this amazing wealth of old, awesome steel junk buried in the borders of our farm, that our farm had sort of just been bulldozed, and the side, you know, the edges, the margins had this wealth of old artifacts. And always growing up, I knew that there was some sort of ship buried in the bushes. Welcome aboard. And so I took the lifeboat out of the bushes, took similarly a trailer that was also out of the bushes, and sort of searched around for all of these stainless steel sinks and practiced my welding by building this cockamamie contraption, which is you know, a wonderful shelter for a sort of any sort of mobile food enterprise, especially significant when you get a bunch of young children or inspired youth to come aboard and cook food, maybe to inspire their families on how to eat, and for you know, young teenagers to come to the farm stand and say, my favorite vegetable is this kale, and here I'll show you, Dad or Mom, this is how I know how to cook it. You know, that's really what the goal was, to inspire youth to feel empowered in their kitchen. And only once I discovered that ship was going to be the house of my new mobile kitchen did I realize that this ship was actually a World War II lifeboat, and that a lifeboat has so much sort of strength to it. It was, you know, protected people from a sinking ship in war, in World War II, and then somehow made its way to our farm, not via roads or trailers. It actually washed up onto our property because our farm is so close to the lagoon that that lifeboat somehow washed up onto our farm, and 50 years later was pulled out of the bushes to actually turn it into another form of a lifeboat. A life as in food is living and we are living, and we are gonna cook food, and that is what life is. And so the lifeboat becomes this mobile kitchen, a sort of a classroom for really inspiring people to cook and to spend time together. And so it's, in a way, it's a little bit of a Noah's Ark to keep canning and food preservation, and just the fact that people need to be inspired to how to cook locally. It's not about bananas and pineapples, it's about chard and kale, and in the winter it's about cabbage and delicata squash, and sort of teaching people and inspiring them how to eat off of the land that's surrounding us.